All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the third episode of Azania Vision Network. Please enjoy. We are back on another lovely episode of Azania Vision Network. I still have my guests, Kwezi and Nyanga, and I'm your host, Langa Balema. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much for choosing this network. Thank you so very much for choosing this podcast. This is a podcast for Pan-Africans and for people who'd like to know more about Africa and so forth and so forth. So I got my guests here with me that join me every week, and we're going to be talking about this. So if you want to, you want more of this, please, you can comment on our comment section on YouTube on our channel. You can also like and share this very content. Yes, and that's not all. That's not all. We spoke last week, but before we get into what we spoke about last week, let me take this time and welcome officially my brothers and my comrades in this. Brother Nyanga and Brother Kwezi, welcome to another show, another episode.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yes. Who you heard right there, that's Brother Nyanga, and that's Brother Kwezi. Gentlemen, let's just get into it. How did you find the last discussion we had? How was that whole thing? Wasn't it nice? Wasn't it amazing and very liberating and so freeing?
Yeah, it really was. Just to be able to have a setting where we talk openly about how much of a disgrace the Queen of England really is. And, it's really, these days, it's, not many people are willing to say that, and there's still some type of reverence for that monarchy in England. And I feel like truly, the centuries it's been forced. We've been forced, Black people, especially us, African people especially, have been forced to revere the Queen. But I think, as you decolonize yourself, you start to really see the Queen for what she really is. She's a monster, Satan incarnate, and what she represents is basically hell on earth.
100%. Let's hear Brother Kwezi. What was your thoughts about last week discussion?
Such discussion is always provide a refreshing point, let's put it that way, where we as Pan-Africans can come together and have such wonderful discussions, about our future and, what are the obstacles that we need to jump. And this whole monarchy thing is one of those systems that we have to jump. We need to liberate ourselves from this colonial superpower called Britain and find our own way, chart our own course. And we've heard them. I believe it's a golden opportunity for us to just drop the shackles and move on. Because the new King Charles III, We don't need to give him any respects or any condolences or anything like that. All we need from him is to return our lost property that this possibly took from us, give us our property back, and let us go our merry way. That's it.
Gentlemen, you'll be surprised. Yesterday I was talking to a Boer, and the Boer would like for me to interview her on matters of history. And the Boer tells me that colonizing Africa was good. No cap. I'm not making this up. And the Boer tells me how colonizing Africa actually developed Africa. And it's a woman. She goes on to say that we see what the country is today in South Africa, and it's because of South Africa being colonized. And she went on to even give me the dates of apparently the first formalized school in South Africa was formed in 1658. That would have been 6 years after after Jan van Riebeeck came into South Africa. And Jan van Riebeeck actually built the first school, which he got the slaves to be educated. And she goes on to say, if it was not for the Boers, if it was not for the colony system, South Africa wouldn't have been South Africa. She even went on to say, you know how she speaks. She speaks like when she refers to, but well, she's right, because she's not a South African. So when she speaks of Africans or South African, he refers to like South Africans, you South Africans or you Africans. And when she refers to the Boers and the colonizers, she says, if it wasn't for us, if we didn't do this, that's how she speaks. When she speaks, she was narrating the story. I spoke to her yesterday, and amongst other things that she says you guys would still be living in your rondavels. A rondavels, what is a rondavels again? It's a hut. Yes, that would be a common probably word or description that maybe you guys will be familiar with. So she says we would still be living in huts if it wasn't for them.
That's
well, she is correct. She is correct. But let me tell you something. Who say that Africa was not developed? And who say that we need developing? She is correct. Africa would not be what it is. But who say that we were not developed? And who say that we need developing?
You know what really even caught my attention about when she mentions to me to say, so the first, how did she put it? Education started in 1658. That's what she said. So started 1658 because of Jan van Riebeeck, who then started teaching the slaves, and other missionaries and other Boers came in, and then the school started. But I'm saying, who said there was no education before then? Who said there was no education? That's my question. Who said there was no teaching? How did people run household, run their kingdoms, their tribe? How were people fed? How were children raised up and trained to protect their family, to go after, go and hunt for food and all of that? Who said that was not education? How was that? Do you just grow up and just have that instinct, or you were taught? Because even in the times of Shaka Zulu, there was some training. There was, I would even look at it as primary. because he had exercises for toddlers, and then there was a bit of training for 6-year-olds till 9-year-olds, and from there you were taken to a stage. I know that in Zulu there's even terms for that. There's terms for even when before you're a teen, what would be the name or category you fall into. Also, when you get into a teen, and even after teenage stage, as a young adulthood, when you get into that, there's also a term for that. So there was some sort of education and knowledge which was fed to the people of Africa, or to the Africans according to the category. So for me, it really puzzled me when she said that no, education only started in 1658. We had that discussion. She said she wants to come on, and I need to interview her in the matters of history. I was like, oh, all right, no, we'll do that. And that was not really our first discussion. One of our first discussion, I remember telling brother Kwezi, I was like, she was talking about how the when now the government, the apartheid government, was institutionalized, and they were enforcing that Africans should do everything in an Afrikaner way, start speaking Afrikaans, do maths and everything else, business in Afrikaans. Everybody in South Africa had to talk Afrikaans. She's saying that was a gift. She's saying that. Who was it? Verwoerd, yeah, that was the president then who enforced that. So he says Verwoerd, who institutionalized apartheid, was doing Africans a favor. You remember, Kwezi, when I told you that conversation?
Yeah, carry on.
Yeah, she says they were doing us a favor. The best gift you can ever give to anybody is to give them your language. How can one person be so ridiculous and still be alive?
That is it's a classic trick. But it's you see, the Western European, once they remember they were in the dark age. After the Roman Empire fell, they go into the dark age.
Right.
So you really have to think about what kind of people we're talking about. These are people who really they don't have anything in their country. And then you also got to think about the Romans. The Romans used to say, like the term cyclops. I was reading a book called The History of White People by a painter. And she goes into how the Romans make fun of the Western Europeans. They would call them monsters and, get all kind of names for them. The whole idea of a cyclops, the monster with one eye, that was how they thought. That's what they thought about the Western Europeans. And, it's an idea of demonizing the people you want to conquer. And once you conquer them, you look at yourself as a liberator and bringing them, right, And, that's pretty much where the Western Europeans get a lot of their ways from, after being conquered by the Romans, and then the Moors, or part of Europe was conquered by the Moors. Once you've been conquered, you start doing exactly, it's like the victim becomes the victimizer type situation. So Western Europeans eventually, come make their way down to Africa and do exactly what's been done to them for the last, 1,000 years. Being conquered. That's what they do. And there's so much war, and we can see it to this day between Russia and Ukraine. There's so much war in Europe. I'm not saying that there weren't wars in Africa at all, but it's a different type of conquering mindset that the Europeans have, whereas they want to conquer everything. They want everything. Now, there's nobody that I know of in history, maybe you guys could educate me a little bit. I don't know of a particular tribe or a kingdom in Africa that tried to conquer all of Africa.
Yeah.
They went around trying to conquer every single person. Not even Egypt did that. I mean, Egypt tried to conquer Nubia at one point, but it's not like they went all the way down to South Africa and Tanzania. Then, we're going to go to the Congo too. We're going to go to Central Africa, conquer them too. That didn't happen. And you have to ask yourself, why is that? Why is the European the one that wants to conquer everything? Everything. And it comes from their geographic location of a lack of resources, so they have to hoard them. They're so used to hoarding everything, so the chance when they actually get, think about it, when they had to go on the Silk Road, when the Ottomans closed the Silk Road down, what did the Europeans do? Next thing you know, it's the Crusades. You know?
Yeah.
They can't help themselves. You know, this is all through their history. They don't have resources there, so they have to go out to try to find them. And when they can't find them, they go to war. You know? And they're warring amongst themselves because of a lack of resources. And then you start seeing them going out to find more resources. Why do you think Christopher Columbus was going all around there to go to India? It's because the Silk Road was closed down. That's why Christopher Columbus actually had to go. He had to try to find another way around because they could not defeat the Ottomans. So they had to find another way around to get to India for spices. Obviously, he was too dumb to realize he wasn't in India. You know, but at the same time, this is the kind of people we're dealing with. And to the lady you're talking about, to the boy that you were interviewing, well, her problem really is that what is her other option? You know, for one, if she says, you know what, we are wrong for that, she's admitting her ancestors were evil, they were treacherous, you know, and, you know, she doesn't want to see herself in that light. And then on top of that, she's basking in her white privilege, you know. So if she's not going to give that up. So she's not going to say that her ancestors were wrong for doing this. Of course, Azania would not look the way it looks today with their roads and stuff like that. But
correct.
You know, at the same time, I don't think Shaka Zulu cared about having those types of interstates.
Yes.
Shaka Zulu cared.
Yes.
You know, and because we don't come from, Africans do not come from a place of a lack of resources. Everybody, you have things where you are, where you're located. You already have enough.
Of course.
What's the point of me trying to go conquer Egypt when I'm all the way down there in Uganda? I don't need to go all the way up to Egypt to conquer it. I have everything I need here. So, you know, that's where I get with that. But, you know.
My standpoint is that if there's anything that, excuse me, pardon me, I personally feel like if there's anything that I've just discovered, the disease they brought into Africa, and this is what we are trying to fight against, it's greed. Boers and Europeans came with the disease of being greedy. Do you get what I'm saying? And you should never, even what you have, which is sufficient, shouldn't be sufficient. It's greed. So because they come from a point of lack, then they come to kill, steal, and destroy. Like I said before we started recording, that if I had to have an interview with them, like, good day, child of the devil, because the devil has come to kill, steal, and destroy. So when they come to kill, steal, and destroy, it's motivated by greed and lack. So that very disease, it's so painful to start seeing it operating in the persons of people of Africa who have so much, who are at the land of so much, and there's a lot. But now they've moved our focus from what we have to supposedly what, quote unquote, what we don't have. You get what I'm saying? I remember now that we now have to look at the sense of currency as whatever. It then becomes everything, and then we feel like Africa is a third world country. Africa is a third world continent, and therefore everybody needs to go to either Europe or to the States, because now they don't have mines, they don't have all the natural resources, the weather is not favoring them and all of that. So now our focus is off of what we do have, and now it's focusing on what is very much artificial. as opposed to what is so very natural and what we do have that keeps on regenerating. I'm not sure if you get what I'm saying, gentlemen. And as a result, now we find our people. When I look at our people, it's we need to detox. Really, we need to detox and flush out this disease, this disease of mentality of lack, mentality of oppression. It's what we talk about week in, week out, which is freeing ourselves mentally. And I like what Brother Nyanga said last week. He talked about killing it in the mind now. If you can just kill this thing, if you can just break the chains and on the mind, we're done. We're free. And this is the reason for this podcast. Brother Kwezi, do you want to come on?
Sure. All we need to do is basically, like I said earlier, just all we need to do is just move on, just keep in the mind and ask for the stolen property that was taken from us. If they don't give it to us, we take it by force and we re-establish our kingdoms that was there before the British came, because we will develop. Apart from, in spite of what the lady was saying, we were satisfied with what we had. Like Nyanga was saying, we were not looking for what that doesn't belong to us. We were not going and raiding our brothers and sisters' property and trying to control the entire border. We were satisfied with what we had. And
which was more than enough, by the way, if you might add. Excuse me. I'm saying which was more than enough, if I might add. Excuse me.
It was more than enough because Africa is a land of plenty. It's Mother Africa.
Yes.
She's pregnant with resources beyond our wildest dreams.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
even all the looting that has been done by Great Britain and France and Portugal and so forth, she still have a lot of resources.
Hey, I like that. No, I love that. I love what even after the looting, after so long, hundreds of years, still there's plenty. There's still a lot to go around. This is what I say, gentlemen. What we don't have to do is ask for those resources back. Two things. We just have to stop this looting and this this stealing from the Western world, which is happening to Africa. We just need to put that to a stop. That's one. And then number two, this is my opinion, by the way. Let's train ourselves, our young people, and the people after that. They need to get this gospel. They need to get this message that we need to get ready. And these people won't stop over a conversation. These people, we cannot talk to them and get them to stop over just talking. Stuff needs to be implemented. And if it's getting our stuff back, just like they came to us, we can go to them. Unfortunately, that will be the price that we might just have to pay. And we know that there'll be loss of life and all of that. But which better cause to die for than to die for your land and to die for your people? I think that's a most fulfilling and the most quality type of life and death or price of it thereof, which for me would be everything. I'd die for Africa today if I have to. I'm ready. I'm prepared for that. And I think if we can all come down to that point to say we have to protect our own, we need to. There's no sharing. Last week I mentioned the Rainbow Nation. It's nonsense. This Rainbow Nation, it's nonsense. Why can't we have a Rainbow Nation in Europe?
That's a good point. This is the thing about it. If you go look at it, a lot of the, even the soccer team nowadays, a lot of African people on it. We basically are the salt of the earth. We enrich everybody's cultures. Whether it's through music, if you listen to the music that comes out of the UK, listen to the music that's coming out of France, look at America, listen to the music And you can already hear how much of an influence African people. We enrich every European nation that we go to. We enrich their culture. But yet, at the same time, the reason why they don't have a problem with the rainbow is because they know that. They know that. It's fine for black people to come there. I mean, they don't want you to rule them, of course, but they would love them to come there and entertain them. They love that. Entertain us, and that's actually, when you think about it, that's exactly what, when they first came there, that's what they were in awe by. Look at their black skin glistening in the sun. They didn't know what to do with themselves. I mean, granted, they had guns, but they were in awe. I always wondered, where in the world? I'm trying to figure out. The Romans did crucifixions and stuff like that. I couldn't find out anywhere where Europeans or any other people group were actually lynching people only until the Europeans come in contact with Africans. They're infatuated with our genitals. You know what I'm saying? I can't find anywhere where the Romans, when they conquered Carthage, I didn't hear where they were chopping off their genitals. You know what I'm saying? It's only when Europeans, especially the Western Europeans, notice how we don't have much derogatory names to call them in the English language. The Western Europeans, the ones on the UK, we don't have many derogatory names to call Anglo-Saxons. But the only thing I could think of is cracker. I don't know what else to call these people. We have Ofe. Anyway, point is, it's not in English. But the thing is, when you really look at it, these Europeans, they know they would rather us say, just like when Mandela, and when he first took over, they wanted the white wars. They wanted him to say, rainbow culture, or rainbow flag, or whatever the case is. I don't know what the infatuation with rainbows is with Europeans. I have no idea. But I think that they have this thing where we would rather them feel like they're included. But we still have the power. That's really what it's about. Giving you crumbs make you feel included. That's what they did to Martin Luther King. They gave them crumbs to make them feel like, integration is good. And really, integration was detriment of African American culture.
No, that wouldn't work, brother. That would never work. That would never work. I remember some of the content that we have actually went through previously. I don't know, gentlemen, if you still remember, there was that gentleman who spoke about. He tells his children, his sons, that you can never marry a white man as a black man. A black woman as a black son. You cannot do that. She would never know you. She would never know your. She'll never get you. That's as simple as that. And also, as a black, you a black lady, you'll be signing yourself up for torture for the rest of your life if you ever married a white man as an African woman. Yes, it just cannot mix. There's stuff that just wouldn't work out. I was even thinking to myself, hearing about these neighborhoods in South Africa, these white neighborhoods, and having some sort of more better service than Africans, which are original from Azania. So I want to find out a question. So would it ever work? Do you ever see an African community staying in somewhere in the UK and getting a better quality than the English? Could that ever happen?
Definitely not. Definitely not.
No, never. That wouldn't even happen in America.
Yeah.
You're not going. It's just not going to happen. If you have a predominantly, especially if there's a lot of classism. Classism is a real thing, especially in capitalist society. It's pretty much all around the globe at this point. But, you're still going to, it's still at the core, it's going to be about race. You have a black upper class neighborhood. And then let's say adjacent to that neighborhood, you have a white upper class. You're not going to catch cops for instance, arresting a white man for going in his house. You will catch that in the black neighborhood where the cop says, "Oh, that must be someone breaking and entering." There's actually a case of that during Obama's, a famous case during Obama's era as president of the United States. Dr. Henry Louis Gates was in a very affluent neighborhood in Massachusetts. He actually locked his keys in the house, so he tried to go through his window. The police stopped him, arrest him, put him in jail, even though he's telling them who he is. Don't give him the benefit of doubt at all. He had his wallet on him. I mean, his address is on there, but it didn't matter. But because he's black, they're just going to arrest him. So, you just, it doesn't matter where you go if you're in a predominantly white society. And actually, unfortunately, it seems like even if you're in a predominantly black society in South Africa,
of course,
you're still going to have racism that's going to be there no matter if you're rich or poor.
And I'm wondering, the same way the lady who came to me and had the audacity to actually say what she was saying to me, I don't know what do you think? Do they undermine our thinking, our logic, or they feel we are impressionable? We are easy to persuade. What do you think?
Well, I think it goes back to exactly what you said in the first episode. It's their arrogance. Their arrogance. That's all it is. A lot of Boers, I don't even know what to call these. We need to come up with a term in English language to call them.
Yeah.
Do y'all have a derogatory name to call the Boers in your language?
I'll just have to think about that. I think there is. I'll just have to think. I know there's a couple of.
Yeah. I would love to use it when I talk about any European.
Yeah.
But I really do think that these people, they don't want to. They know their history. They know the history. They know the real history. And that's what I picked up in America, where there were a lot of this colleges here where they have a white person teaching you black history.
Imagine that.
See, it's not always a black, or an African, professor who's teaching black history. And a lot of white people, they do know the history. They see it, and you got to think about it. A lot of their grandparents were part of, or were in the apartheid movement, right? They were part of apartheid. I actually work with a woman from South Africa, and her husband just died, actually. But her father was a part of the police.
Sure.
And I asked her one day. I said, "What was it really like growing up in South Africa back then?" And I wanted to hear her point of view. I didn't want to come off like I know so much already. I just wanted to come off as an ignorant American. That's what I came off to her as.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, because I wanted to give her truth.
Yeah.
And she told me how nice it was. She said how much her family land, how beautiful it is. She talked about, the scenery. And I'm just thinking in my head the whole time. I'm just like, I wonder how many people had to die before your family moved. She doesn't even care.
She doesn't care. She wouldn't.
How many bodies are buried in the house, for instance? I have no idea. But they're oblivious. You know what? That's the wrong term. They do know exactly what happened, but their refusal to acknowledge it is really where the arrogance comes in. I dare you to bring it to my face what we really did. Don't show it to me on the TV, or don't show me pictures. mean, they don't want to see that. They want to just look at the scenery. Look at how beautiful, you know, and don't talk about the other stuff. I don't want to hear that. You know, I just want to focus on how beautiful my house is, my family land, you know, and that's all I want to talk about. She talks about how her dad was a good man. I don't know how you could be a good man and you're a part of the police in South Africa. That's like
which are killing people at that time.
Exactly. How could you be good?
Who are killing people and enforcing oppression.
Right.
And being the gatekeepers. No, that for me, that's crazy. That's you know what? I think, yeah, we can call it arrogance, but for me, it really even smells the whole core of evil. It's
I agree with you.
They are just indifferent, you know, like they really just don't care what we think. They don't care what. But like, okay, I am the boss. I am your master. You have to submit to me, right? And that's what it is.
Yeah, that's rough, man. I you know, and the state of apartheid ended in 1993. I mean, that's extremely recent. You know, that's very recent. Man.
When I was born, apartheid was just about over.
Right. I mean, that is very recent, man. That's a recent history. It's not like
and we can still see the effects of it, like practically so. We can still the effects of the apartheid regime is still there. The effects, the way things are still happening, we can still sense it. It's still there.
Well, you can talk to your parents. You know, you can talk to your parents, and they vividly remember apartheid. You know? Whereas over here, you know, it's kind of like, you know, I mean, the 60s is kind of when integration really started. But I mean, by no most stretch of the imagination, you know, like when you're in the southern United States, integration was extremely slow process. And just to give some history on it, when they started integrating the public schools, so the state-owned public schools, once they started integrating those schools, it could have just been like a couple of black kids that moved into and ended up going to those schools. They started private schools, and you won't believe what these private schools were called. Christian academies. Christian academy. They started them all across the South in America. All across the South. You have Christian schools all across the South. And the reason they started was so they wouldn't have to abide by integration rules, because it's not a state-owned school anymore. It's a privately owned school, and privately owned schools could have their own admission process. So they were able to keep them all white, the Christian schools, and that way their kids wouldn't have to go to school with black kids. You see, and you know, I just look at that and I say, you know, I don't know what the lingering process of apartheid is, besides, you know, as far as the, you know, obviously the economic pendulum did not swing back to the people. It's obviously stayed in the hands of the boards that already had it during apartheid, I'm pretty sure. So, you know, I'm wondering what society, you know, what type of segregation still continued after apartheid was over.
I can tell you this much. There's a brother whom I speak to from time to time. He's not that older than me. He's just a couple of years older than me. He says he's got a memory that cannot leave his head. And he somewhat believes that could have also caused the death of his own mom. So he says sometime during, it was 1987 or 88, somewhere around there. He says what would have happened, he was around 9, 10. So these white Boer cops came into their home. Number one, kicked the door open. He says it was at night, and they were saying they are looking for terrorists. They went to her mom's bed. when he tells a story, he could almost cry. He told it once to me, and I just changed the subject because I could see the amount of torture it does to him. And then the boy, remove the blankets off his mom and says they're looking for terrorists. And her mom was not even dressed. They pulled her, they like dragged her from her feet. Her mom landed on her head, and then she was completely naked. And he had to see all of that, see her mom nude, and then being dragged by a white man like that off the bed, and she landed on her head. And the same way, where are the terrorists? There's a term they were used to use for that, which is really degrading. For they use that for Africans, but maybe something as close to what maybe would be common right now, like where's those terrorist monkeys, something like that. And then from that day moving onwards, the mom started having epileptics. She was epileptic. She had epilepsy. So it did a couple of months, and then she passed away. So he cannot help but to think that it could have been the landing on her head that caused all of that. And not to mention the imagery of, can you imagine the torture and the trauma? Both him and the mom, man, undressing you like that in front of your child. And you're also fearing for your child. And as a child, you're fearing for your mom.
Yeah.
And we're not talking something that happened 100, 200 years old. I'm talking about something that's could be 32 years old or 30-year-old new information. This could have happened in 1988, somewhere around there. Can you imagine that?
That's about 40 years ago,
It's less than 35 years ago.
Brother Kwezi, I did have a quick question about what was, what you hear from parents and grandparents. Did y'all have like a system of segregation there? Locals couldn't go to certain beaches. They were all for white people, or what was that like in the Caribbean?
Well, in the Caribbean, obviously, segregation did happen there. That's without a doubt. But to what extent, I'm not too sure to what extent.
Yeah.
But I know it did happen to an extent. And
right.
It would be the same thing with the schools and you have to go to this school where people go to this school, or if they went to the same school, they couldn't mix up with each other. Those things. There wouldn't be any difference.
Yeah.
My parents also tell me about that. There was a train for white people and a train for blacks, and in what should we call it, a taxi or what? There was also a division. They would put a board like something that will cause the demarcation. And so my mom during the time, she just got into working in at a hospital. She got a job at the hospital, and her supervisor at that time has never seen a day at school. And then because she was a Boer. And it was not only her. There was many like people who ran these who were either supervisors or managers and all of that. They were just Boers, just because of they are Boers, not because of education, not because of anything. And she also narrates that during their lunch hour, whatever the case might be, there was basically a dining hall for whites or Boers, and there's like a passage or a foyer where Africans can have their lunch there. They were not allowed to mix. And then she says, whenever these even during the time, she says there was a lady who'd speak to her. But my mom would have been very fair skinned, or her skin tone is very light. So they'd presume that if always ask her if she's not mixed race, that's or maybe in South Africa they call coloreds, and then she says no, I'm not colored, and they ask her, are you okay hang out with uh, black people? And she says, but I am African, and those are the stuff that you can imagine the type of living. And then she also mentioned that among her colleagues there was a white lady. Again, as well, didn't even make it to the seventh grade, but I think had a high rank type of office in at the hospital. It also that lady had a domestic worker. Had the the pride to say she doesn't let her helper get into her house with her clothes. So as a helper at that lady's household, you need when you come in, you take off all your clothes, like everything. You hang it on a tree, and then you wear whatever overalls or whatever the case would be, or apron or whatever, and then you go inside the house and then you get you understand. And she was narrating that you at times imagine it rains and your clothes are hanging on the tree, and after work you need to wear them as wet as they are, and that's some level of evilness, if you don't ask me.
It's awful, and with all that being said, though, when you really think about the history which we all come from as African people, where we are presently, it disappoints me of how so many of us African people might know some of our history, but don't appreciate our history enough to make ourselves more mindful of what we're doing. Over here, it's very just giving, just a attitude of just giving up. I noticed that with a lot of African people, Africans in America. I noticed that with a lot of them. It's just this attitude of just giving up. They're just so tired. It's just, I guess, centuries of getting beat down. They're just giving up. And you really have to, and I'm pretty sure it's like that everywhere with African people now. We're so, ancestors have been fighting the system for so long. You finally got a little bit of progress, and you're just so tired of fighting. And a case in point, it goes to the idea of out here they snag their pants a lot. And a lot of people say, oh, it came from prison, and it did to a certain extent, but it also has a meaning of I don't care. I don't care about anything. And I don't even, and basically it goes to as further as to say, I don't even care about myself. See?
That's the painful part.
The sagging of pants actually means two things, and both of them it doesn't mean anything good. It talks about the prison life. That's one, and two, it signifies that you are gay.
All right.
Yes.
Whatever that would mean.
From prison, yeah. When it comes from prison, yes. But see, they've also taken another meaning from it. You see, like it's a lot of times, when we take certain styles or something like that, it might have been for that, but what it means now is basically I don't care. I don't care about life. I don't care about anything. It's called like the I don't give a F attitude. That's what they call it. You see? And so when you see kids nowadays, it's not that they're gay anymore. It's not that. What they're saying is I don't care. You see? And that's what kind of, really breaks me. So you see these kids and they're sagging their pants, but they're sagging their pants now not because they're gay, they're sagging their
They're
pants.
They're definitely not gay. Definitely not gay at all.
That's what hurts.
It's yeah. So I'm saying this that for me, from where I stand, I just feel like instead of giving up, I guess this is the reason why we are compelled to have such a platform where we can talk about such things, to give hope to those who feel hopeless, and to give them a little bit of courage and say, no, dig deep down and let's go back, let's continue where our ancestors left off of, and now let's go even harder. Because now information is out there. We know the enemy. We know what the enemy has, so we can go directly at them. This is the purpose of what we're doing here on Runabout now. Instead of actually being discouraged, demotivated, just don't care anymore. Care about your identity. Care about you're very important. That's their hope. That was the entire target, to actually get one to give up, to get one to neglect themselves, because I think their strategy is one. We spoke about it: divide and conquer. And once you're divided, you fall on either two sides. One, either you fall on the I don't care attitude mode, so that's when they run all over you. Or two, you feel you get this individualistic type of mind frame. You do things for me. I'm doing it for me. If I'm just me and my kids, or okay, my wife, that's it. And not necessarily focusing on. Sorry for that. I'm sorry for all of that. I'm sorry for that. And not really focusing on the bigger picture, the bigger calling, the reason we're doing all of this. Once you miss that, so these are the two sides they are praying you fall on. You fall on there. I don't care anymore. I throw my hands up in the air. I'm done. I'll live and die. That's it. Or falling on the side of like, no, as long as I get a job, work for my kids, that's it. And not really have a cause. You know what unified our ancestors and gave them power? It's the cause. They had a cause to live and to die. So that once we then identify the cause, not a job, a cause. So that's what we're trying to bring back, that unification and a cause of freeing us as Africans. Yes, I think that's what we are missing at this time. So, gentlemen, I want us now to give our parting thoughts. Let's give our final shots, and we will resume again next week. But let me hear. Lastly, from you, Brother Nyanga, what would be your parting thoughts on all that we've spoken about at this time?
Well, yeah, I mean, Brother Kwezi brings up a lot. It's Pan African, and he's very right saying that, because that to me, as the more we talk about the history of African people, especially under colonialism, and imperialism, you see it's very similar. And it also brings the point that we have a common enemy. See? And no matter where the Europeans went, as you brought up before, is that they brought disease, germs, guns, and I mean that's just what they did. They call themselves conquerors. This whole idea, even it brings into point, this whole idea of this fascination with gangsterism. Well, if you ask me, that's a European concept. Gangsterism itself is a European concept. I do not believe Shaka Zulu thought of himself as a gangster.
Definitely not.
And exactly.
And to show that it is, because now let me show you something. There's no term for or word for gangsterism in an African native language. We don't have that name. When we're talking about gangsters, we use the whether you're speaking Zulu, Sotho, whatever, Xhosa. When you're saying gangsters, you call them gangsters. We don't have, even elders call them gangsters, because it's never been there before.
Now that's really deep, because I'm pretty sure I've heard some South African, hip hop before and stuff like that.
Right.
When you really think about it, it's kind of like this idea of shooting somebody.
Yeah.
Or getting angry and I'm just gonna go shoot up somebody's house. Where that's something European. If you really think about it, that's something that Europeans basically were doing. I mean, they're the gangsters, and that's not gangsters in a positive way. And I think we need to, in the black community, and it seems like that. I'm pretty sure, Jazzy, you see a similar thing in the Caribbean. Caribbean where they had this idea of gangsterism, and that's something I think the Black community everywhere, African community everywhere, needs to fight against, because that is that's really us assimilating into European culture as opposed to breaking ourselves away from a European mindset and also a colonized.
Yeah, that's very cool. Oh, Brother Kwezi, can you give us... Yes, Brother
Gangsterism is basically what, is dividing the Black community, because now when we play gangster, it's basically we are killing ourselves. We are killing the white people.
Right.
So we are just annihilating our own self. But to give my concluding thoughts, we have talked a lot about coming together as Africans from Africa and the entire diaspora, whether you are in Americas, in Europe, you're in Asia, wherever you are listening to us on this podcast. We need to build a sense of community. There is no time like the present. There are a lot of things which are about to unfold. If we as brothers and sisters don't come together, we will find ourselves in some difficult situations. If you look at the white people, they are together. You look at the Chinese people, they are together. You look at the Indians, they are together. So what about us? Let's build a sense of community.
Yes.
So that we can make this Black nation what it was. And strive and succeed in all measures.
Now, those are very powerful words. Thank you so very much, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me on the third episode of Azania Vision Network. My parting thoughts will be agreeing with both of you guys, gentlemen. Let us build this community of Africans who are for Africa and for Africans. So let's hold each other and let's protect each other, defend each other, empower each other. Thank you so very much. This is the host of Africa Vision Network. No, it's Azania Vision Network. Thank you so very much, gentlemen, for joining me. Doing this again next week. Thank you so much.